Good morning to our members in Germany and Denmark, and thank you for tuning in. I hope you have a good cup of coffee wherever you are. I am at our studio in Copenhagen and I'm joined by Lisa Herrmann, Head of Sales and Partnerships for German-speaking countries at DeLogue, Teodor Bjurling, Solution Engineer at Celonis. Both DeLogue and Celonis have recently joined the Chamber of Commerce, and when we looked into their profiles and core competences, we found that they have something in common. Both companies are IT-based and help other companies to use resources more efficiently and thus become more sustainable. Since we like telling stories about companies that make the world more sustainable, we suggest to both Celonis and DeLogue to get together for this talk on sustainability through IT. Thank you, Lisa and Teodor, for being with us this morning. We agreed to focus on the three areas that you also find in the invitation. Number one is company processes and supply chains. Why are most of them not sustainable? Number two, data transparency as the key to more sustainability. And then number three, the main part and the hard part, implementing change and where to start. But before we focus on the subjects, I would like to ask our two guests to briefly introduce themselves and the companies they represent. I would like to start with DeLogue and Lisa Herrmann.
Thanks, Rainer. So we are DeLogue, which means Design Dialogue. And what we do is that we offer a product lifecycle management platform for the fashion and the textile industry. And on it, they can collaborate throughout the product lifecycle and collect data from the product side, but also from the supplier side. And we're based here in Copenhagen, but since 3 years, we're also active within Germany.
Okay, great. Teodor, how about Celonis?
Yes, thanks for having me. So at Celonis, we essentially help organizations find and fix inefficiencies that they can't see. And we do this with our execution management system, or the EMS as we call it, which is based off process mining, which can be described like an X-ray of your organization's processes. So every step you take leaves a digital trace in the source systems. Process mining then collects them and visualizes them instantly and allowing you to see these inefficiencies. And then for the execution management part, we take these insights and derive targeted actions through automation or artificial intelligence to remove them from the processes.
Cool. And since you at Celonis have a broader focus than DeLogue, I want to start with you and put this first topic to you. Company processes and supply chains, why are most of them not sustainable?
Yeah. So when you think about supply chains, they are basically a replication of the organization's business model and are being based out of the processes. And traditionally, there's been a lot of focus on improving supply chains, the processes, major with the goal of either having more revenue or reducing costs. So with this, organizations have usually put sustainability on the side and focusing on becoming more cost-effective. And they have viewed if they want to do something for sustainability, they might do it at the cost of reducing revenue, as an example. And what this has led to is that we have seen sustainability being deprioritized. And the result of that is we can see that in the supply chain specifically, more than 70% of all the business emissions come from those processes. And I think that is a direct effect of not having sustainability as a key decision for steering the way we do businesses.
Okay. And at Celonis, you help with the process mining, and that serves also as the basis, I think, for consulting services. Then I understand that major consulting companies also use your software.
Yes, indeed. So use both internally, but also to help doing diagnostic for clients.
Okay. At DeLogue, you're more specialized on supply chains in the textile industry. How do you view this first point? Why are most of the supply chains not sustainable?
Yeah, well, supply chains within the fashion and textile industry are a very complicated thing to look through, and they are notoriously opaque. So within the supply chain, it's also what Teodor was saying. Companies are also trying to make their supply chain as cost effective as possible. And that also led within the past to outsourcing more and more processes to suppliers and their sub-suppliers and their sub-suppliers. And then then you saw that there was this big web of relations that existed, this very complex web of relations. And a lot of companies within this industry, they are still in close dialogue with their first-tier suppliers, maybe also with their second-tier suppliers. But then it becomes complicated to see who else is involved there. Because within the fashion industry, you have somebody sourcing the raw materials, somebody else is taking care of the weaving, the dyeing, the buttons, the zippers, and all of that. And in order to take a sustainable decision or to become a sustainable company, you have to understand who is part of your supply chain. Who do we need to involve to get the bigger picture and to take a decision here?
So so you get closer to your suppliers, also tier 2 and tier 3?
Yes. And
suppliers which are usually very far away from where you are.
Yes. Well, for us, for DeLogue, we're trying to connect mostly the companies with their first-tier suppliers, maybe also with the second-tier suppliers that are responsible for the trims, which are buttons and zippers. But now that also the supply chain law in Germany is coming in, there will be due diligence on the company side to collect data, especially for the first-tier suppliers. But we also see that there is more in the pipeline coming from the EU that might be stricter and that might require fashion companies to also trace down more data. So there's definitely the time now to start making some changes.
Okay. I think when we discussed this, you had a good example of how you cut waste. Actually, you have some example for our listeners on how the platform actually helps to reduce resources and waste.
Yeah, with the platform, you can use some of the analytics to see how much material, for example, you have purchased from a certain supplier. And then you can also see, okay, how much have we actually used of that? How much waste did we have at the end? Or how many samples did we produce that we actually didn't need? And the platform also helps by making communication more transparent, by avoiding mistakes that lead to more samples that are actually not needed, just by making the process more transparent and by having all data available.
I think we were just about to move over to the second bullet point or the second item we have on our agenda. Data transparency is the key to more sustainability. If you can develop this point a bit further.
Yeah, of course. I always think that what you can't see, you can't measure. So in that sense, knowledge really is power. Like when you really see how your supply chain is built up, and if you're able with the right IT infrastructure to collect this data, then you can take the right decisions in the end. I mean, how will a company be able to take a real risk analysis of their supply chain if they are not able to spot the weak links in it? So it's very important to start collecting data on the supplier side and also on the products.
Okay, cool. Teodor, data transparency is of course also your big, actually, what do you call it? Your mission to deliver. Can you develop on this point a bit further?
Yes.
On the importance of data transparency for your customers.
Yeah, indeed. So I fully agree with the statement that what you can't see, you can't measure, and ultimately you can't fix. And that's what we see as being the biggest obstacle for organizations to becoming more sustainable. There's simply not enough data that they are aware of, which can help them in the steering. And when we look at these emissions or unnecessary waste, most of them come because of simple data issues in the processes. As an example, in the order management process, when you get an order and then somehow there's some missing data points. You need to go in and investigate, you need to send emails and look around in documents to update that specific data points. And what that does is that it can delay the process with 2 days, forcing us in the end to, instead of shipping the goods with a truck, to use express shipped with air freight. And this significantly increases the emissions involved in shipping the goods. So by having the full data transparency of your business data, first of all, will help you to detect these unnecessary inefficiencies and then optimize the process so that you make sure that you have the goods ready on time and can ship it with the more environmental friendly manner. But that is mainly about the business data that can be used to improve sustainability. But then we have another layer, which is actually sustainability data. So how do we collect sustainability data and use that in order to change the way we are doing business? And then using that to find synergies between business impact and sustainability impact, which will help us to find synergy effects and getting buy-in from different stakeholders where they can see that we can improve both our cost effectiveness while also reducing emissions. So all of these answers can be found if we have the data in place.
Cool. Yeah. I think it is time to ask and encourage our listeners or viewers to also post questions using the chat function to Lisa and Teodor. And when we prepared this last week, we said that we're going to reserve most of the time actually for the third question, which is titled The Hard Part, Implementing Change. And I would like to start with you in the broader context, Teodor.
So first of all, we want to understand where in the organization should we start. And coming back to the issue of sustainability within supply chain processes, that also is the greatest leverage point to start making a real impact. Because every time an employee or customer or a vendor touches the process, that becomes an improvement opportunity in terms of sustainability. So we should start within those supply chain focuses such as procurement, order management, logistics, warehouse management and shipment. And then you really need to prioritize what use cases or what specific examples do you want to improve first. And usually what we see is that linking it to the business impact at the same time makes the process easier, because then you get buy-in, you get sponsorship from management to really go through and focus on making those improvements. So the key is basically to take it step by step and prioritize in order to make sure that we get the entire organization on board in the project.
Also, I imagine that convincing people to do this is pretty easy, because there are also parallel interests in terms of environment and business. Yeah. Because the example that you gave about express shipping versus normal shipping, express shipping creating more CO2 emissions and also being more expensive for the company.
And also safeguarding that we don't deliver delayed to our customers. It's also about customer satisfaction. So there are a lot of synergy effects when focusing on improving sustainability, affecting your business as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay. It seems we're discussing this so thoroughly that people do not have questions. But again, I encourage you to ask questions to our two experts here. But Lisa, if you want to pick up on that, this hard part, implementing change.
Well, I think the hardest part in implementing change is first admitting that there is room for improvement. And if you've already gotten there, then you're already a big step forward. And then I think it's all about finding the right partners for your industry to build up this IT infrastructure. So we have Celonis as a really good example, who can do an X-ray, like you said, Teodor, of all of your processes. And then when we zoom in, and I take us as a company as an example, because DeLogue is one puzzle piece within this big puzzle, which is the IT infrastructure. So what we can deliver is certain product-related data, certification data, material composition data, but also we need support by other partners. So also we are partnering up with companies who are able to measure the CO2 footprint, who are able to trace the supply chain further down. And this is all knowledge that we are sharing also with our customers. So the idea is to build a tech stack, like your full IT set, made up of the best of breed technologies, meaning for every part you find the best technology in its kind. And then you connect these in order to have the data flow seamlessly in between. And then you also get a broad overview. And this is change from within the company, but I also think that much more can be done from outside. And I think it's already a good step now, a very important step that we're having the supply chain law coming, but governments can also motivate more sustainable, circular businesses and also give the right financial basis in order to promote the digital transformation within the fashion industry in particular.
Where do your customers come from, if I may ask?
Mostly Scandinavia, because we have our home base here, but we're also very strong in the Netherlands and in Germany.
In this, I think, what's it called? The Lieferketten-Sorgfalts?
Sorgfaltspflichtengesetz.
Lieferketten-Sorgfaltspflichten, that's a nice German word.
Yeah.
Is that the idea behind it? Is it very German, or do we have about the same laws on the way in other countries?
Yeah, there are more. There is already regulation in the Netherlands. There's also regulation in France already in place, and it's not a new thing, right? I mean, there have been regulations regarding this from a long time ago, but it has never been implemented as a real law. So this is now the first time to really formalize all of these different regulations that we had dotting around to really make companies responsible for their business activities abroad.
So, well, I understand that also using the platform makes companies compliant a lot more easily.
It helps them to see where they're not compliant, I think, and to collect the data that they need for the right reporting, because the companies under the supply chain law will be asked to launch a sustainability or due diligence report. And for that, of course, they need the right data that in part we can deliver to these customers.
Okay. It is, oh yeah, that's a post from...
We had a small issue, but they couldn't write in the chat until now.
Okay.
So, we apologize for that. The chat is open now if you want to post questions. I think we have about 13 minutes left. And well, something that we have not discussed and not prepared, but an interesting question always is for companies, business model. How do the businesses actually work? What do customers pay for? Who pays for what on what basis? Can you tell us, Lisa, how this works for your company?
For our company, DeLogue?
Yeah.
So our platform is subscription-based. So our customers are buying a license, and with the license, they basically leave a trace within the platform. So everybody who does something, who has a communication, who adds data, is visible there. So that's our business model. And of course, we train...
That's the fashion producers, the producers of textiles.
It's the fashion brands.
The fashion brands these are the customers.
The fashion brands and also textile companies are our customers, but our fashion brands can also connect their suppliers, so they also get licenses. And we have decided as part of our business model to not charge for the connections for the suppliers, because we think it's really important to enable the supplier side to use these digital tools and to exchange data.
Okay. And it is like I imagine that the brands are usually in Europe and North America, and the suppliers are in Asia.
And a lot in Europe, especially. We see it more and more that now the production side moves closer again, also because of the pandemic and also what we see now in the Ukraine, the economic instability. It's more favorable now to bring production a bit closer home again.
Where are the centers in Europe?
In Portugal.
Portugal?
Depends on what you want to produce, but shoes, for example, leather is usually in Portugal, Italy, but you also have Lithuania, you have Romania, Bulgaria as production sites. So, yeah.
And I imagine Northern Africa is also
a
place, Tunisia,
yes,
I
Tunisia.
imagine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so the production is moving away from places like India, Bangladesh, Thailand and Vietnam.
Yeah, I think a lot of companies have also realized that they can't bet everything on one horse, because when then there is a shock within the supply chain, it's very difficult to get the goods back home, like we've seen in the pandemic, right? So yes, they're coming closer to home to avoid risks.
Okay, we have not prepared this, but can you see, we're living in a time of increased inflation, and what you're describing seems to me like we're adding cost.
Yeah.
Really, does that show in the textile industry that and are clothes getting more expensive?
I haven't noticed it personally, but I'm pretty sure that some of our customers agree that prices have gone up, not just because of inflation, but also lately the boom in organic materials also went up like crazy. So everybody wanted to source this organic cotton, but there's also just so much organic cotton. So of course the supply was rather short, and also due to that the prices there went up.
Okay, great. How about looking at the chat just no questions there. Celonis, your business model, how does that work?
Yeah, so we're also a software as a service, cloud-based platform where you pay for a license, which provides you access to the platform. And when we talk about sustainability and getting that data to help our customers to improve, I fully agree with what you say that we need to partner up, because we have our platform, and then there are some extremely good providers out there for specific sustainability purposes. For example, in terms of supplier data. Partnering up with them can allow the customers to directly see the sustainability ratings of the suppliers that they purchase from. And then they can use that as a decision point of who do we purchase the materials from and who do we source them in from. And I think this is also when talking about this insourcing trend, when you move factories closer to the business, it's also coming from the expectations of the customer, the end consumer, because sustainability has become more important as a decision factor for individuals when deciding what type of clothes or what type of products they want to purchase. So by having this sustainability data available in the decision making for organizations, it becomes easier for them to make sure and being transparent towards the end consumers how their products have affected the environment.
No questions in the chat. And then final question from my side: how far do you go in partnering with your customers then in terms of implementing change?
Yes. So usually what we want to do is that we have experience on what are the most common use cases which we can help our customers for. But then specifically in terms of sustainability, we like to co-develop and co-innovate. What is a specific pain point that you need help with solving? And then we help and have discussions with the customer, identifying how should we implement this in the most effective way. So specifically in the area of sustainability, we see a lot of co-innovation and co-discussion happening.
Okay. How far do you go in partnerships with how far do you go in helping companies to adjust and transform?
I think it's similar to what Celonis does. We also look at the current business processes. We already start with that during the sales process, right? When we want to bring our product across, that we look at, okay, where are the actual gaps here? What are the biggest challenges that the company wants to change in the short term? And then we have a dedicated, we call it onboarding process, in which we help the customer to build up the structure according to their requirements and also according to the other systems that they're using within their supply chain, right? Because we can't just make up something in our platform that doesn't match the data requirements in other points. So we are very hands-on, especially in the very, very beginning when it comes to the training.
Okay. Cool. So a lot more than just a platform. You showed me your platform, which brings suppliers and your customers, the fashion brands, together. It looks like this is a platform business, but there's a lot more to it.
There's a lot more behind it. Yeah, we're very service-minded and user-minded, and we really like the exchange because our customers also really help us to drive innovation. We're lucky that we have great customers that really like working on new projects with us. So we value that a lot.
Great. Thank you. Well, since there are no questions in the chat, I'd like to close it here. And it has been great hearing those two stories. One actually from Germany. Celonis is a company that comes from Munich. Delogue is from Copenhagen.
From Copenhagen, yeah.
So this is also why we invited you both. We like to talk about Germany and Denmark, and very much at the same time. Great companies, great business models. Thank you for coming here, and thank you to you there at your office or wherever you are for tuning in. Yeah, famous last words. I'd like to draw your attention to our next coffee meeting on 20th of September. I will talk about uncertainty and geopolitics with the director of the Copenhagen Institute for Futures Studies, Dasha Krivonos. And the background obviously is change geopolitics with regard to the war, the Russian war actually in Ukraine, and what follows from this, with a focus obviously on what all this means for companies and businesses. Thank you very much.